So I'm recording this and I'll be sharing it probably possibly on my website and giving people links. So if that's just so you guys know, if you don't want to be seen on camera or want to, if that changes what you have to say today. All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
See.
Excellent. So, well, why don't we get started kind of softly here, and then if more people jump in, we'll just bring them on. So welcome, my name's Ben, and Ben Sanford. I'm the your guide this evening, and I am the vision keeper and founder of Tribal Edge over in Washington State. There's a few people on here that I don't know, and there's about 5, 6, 7 people I do know. So I'd like to first just kind of take a moment. This is meant to be a little bit participatory, and so I would like to invite you guys to just introduce yourselves and perhaps share the short version of who you are. I know all of us are infinitely complex, so you don't have to go on and on, but introduce who you are, where you're coming from, and what brought you here in terms of what caught you for this evening. And I'm specifically interested in whether you are drawn more to the idea of the sacred fire or the sacred circle, or both. So you could include that as well. And we can just go around to whoever would mind going first.
I'll go ahead. I'm just very interested in everything you're up to these days, Ben. I feel like you need to turn your mute off. Okay. I feel like it's something that I've been wanting to explore for a long time. You got to turn the volume down. Sorry about that, you guys. Just very interested in what you have to say tonight, Ben, and getting a little more involved in the future with whatever program. So I really, I'm 2 doors down from Ben. I'm Ben's neighbor and friend for many years. My wife and I are artists. There she is. So we're having a little trouble with feedback in the same room. And I love what Ben contributes to my life. We practice Qigong on a regular basis in the mornings, and I'm just really grateful for what he has to offer this world, and I'm interested in learning more. So thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Welcome. We're just doing a little brief intro. Who are you? Where are you coming from? What interests you more, sacred fire or sacred circle, or both?
All right.
And you can take yourselves off mute and, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Can you hear?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, please, after you.
I'm Evelina. I'm in Western Colorado. My partner and I have started an education and demonstration site for regenerative living skills here in Colorado, and we also have a forming community on the land. I'm very interested in kind of reviving the ancient connections with the land and each other. So any type of rites of passages or any kind of rituals or ceremonies that kind of keep that going are very interesting to me, and would love to be able to practice some of those. Any techniques and any practices that are grounding to the land and each other. And I've heard of you, Ben, through Nate Summers. That's why I'm here.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, I shall go now. How about that? Okay. Well, my name is Nandita. I'm called Nandita, and I have been, let's see, I was involved in Tribal Edge for many years, and I've been Ben's student for many years. And it was just one of the most delightful experiences of my life. And it's pretty much transformed me as a human being. So I've been out of the country for 3 years now, but just even getting of what you're going to talk about, as you know, both the sacred fire and the circle and just the whole expansiveness of all of it is just, I really need that. It's been a while, you know, being out here. And so, oh, I'm in Mexico, by the way, in San Miguel. And I'm really thrilled you're doing this, because this is, like you said, our digital campfire. So it's an interesting idea, particularly for, ¿cómo se dice? Technological plebeians such as me, you know, so it's really fun and interesting to try to figure out how this whole thing works. And I'm excited that you're doing this, and I'm really looking forward to what you have, what I can glean from this after so long, because I miss being there. I really deeply miss being there so much. That's it.
Miss you too.
I've kind of just waited. I didn't want to, I knew there would be video interruptions and mic interruptions. I'm Kevin. I guess I will just say that I, what has it been, like 2 years? I don't know, Ben. I happen to have been directed kind of towards nature connection through another friend of mine who pointed me pretty much towards Ben. I've been doing little casual tree work, martial arts, sea call, but I had always wanted to learn from Tom Brown Jr. and hearing about everything, just everything fit with Ben, and he's been one of the best people I've met. So anything you start, I try to get into if I can, and seeing this, here I am trying to do all the things and learn all the primitive skills slowly but surely. This doesn't seem like a bad place to be. I'm into the sacred fire and sacred circle. All of it would be interesting, especially because you're teaching it. So here I am. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Jackie. You met Greg, my husband, and we live 2 doors down from Ben and love him dearly. And I'm really interested in the sacred fire and the medicine wheel, and just can't wait to hear more about it.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda. I live in Sequim, Washington. I'm going through a lot of transition right now in my life. And I heard about Ben from a new friend of mine who has been mentored and really raves about Ben and his teachings. And I've been really connecting with spirit and my ancestors and the land and animals and nature. I'm a double earth sign, so I really resonate with the earth, and I've been really interested in astrology, and I heard Ben's wife is into astrology. So I'm really looking forward to learning more. And I have a 4-year-old daughter, and so I'm really looking forward to a sense of community too. So I'm excited to get to know everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We have Nate Summers joining. Barbara, you're welcome to share, even though we can't see you, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's not meant to be that way, but my equipment and I are not getting along tonight. My name is Barbara Priest. I'm about an hour away from Ben. I was referred to him by a joint friend, Robert Morris. And I'm interested in the medicine wheel. And I've been practicing shamanism for about 5-6 years now.
Well, thank you for coming. Kristen, I don't know if I've met you, but welcome.
Thanks. No, you haven't met me. I got an email and I think it was from Nate, but I don't know anything about what you do, but I was just interested. So that's why I'm here, just to learn more.
Well, welcome. Thank you for taking a risk.
Thank you.
And hello, Nate. Thank you for jumping in. Welcome, welcome. Real pleasure to have you here. He said, I don't know if you guys saw it in the chat. He's going to be off camera and off mute or off mic because he's got some wild kids running around, or a wild one running around. So, excellent. Well, just to give you a real quick orientation to this evening, and I've allotted up to a couple hours for this. It certainly doesn't have to be that long. I want to respect everyone's time, but also it's these are both subjects that can, well, I personally can get very carried away with and get deeply into. So who knows, we might go for a good roll here. So, but I really thank you for coming and joining me this evening and responding to the emails. And I know how just that is a hoop to jump through in itself, especially these days. We're bombarded by countless attempts for our attention. But so it's going to be kind of a casual, informal evening. I want us to feel very participatory and connected. So if you have any questions or thoughts, you're welcome to join in and ask. Just for some Zoom etiquette in the meantime, if you could mute yourselves while it'll probably be me talking mostly, but whoever's talking, that'll create a little more clear environment. So, and there's a chat area too. I don't know if you haven't used Zoom, you can click on the chat button and you can see Nate's message there. So that's how that works. And there's other cool Zoom features. If you are a Zoom pro, I'm approaching competence with Zoom, so bear with me as I, work this out. So anyway, I expect we'll go through, I'm gonna kind of do an introduction, just a sharing for the first section. I'm not sure how long that'll take, and then just open it to questions, and then give you a little more details about the courses in particular, and how they're gonna work. And then that'll be kind of it. So let's, one of the things we do at Tribal Edge, and that is the beginning of all of our meetings and events and programs and classes, is a little bit of gratitude. And if you were a student of Nate's or a friend of Wilderness Awareness School, you're probably familiar with the routine. And so I think tonight, just to keep it rather short, I'm just going to lead us through a short Thanksgiving, and you can join in. I'll just ask you if anyone else feels that way, and you can make some movement or make a noise. No one will hear it anyway. And we'll carry on. So anyway, one of the things I've missed throughout the COVID experience, and even since then, kind of as our community, physical community, has been kind of attempting to kind of jump back into gear and reapproaching connecting with people, being in the same space with people, sharing air with people, these things that are so, up until this point in my life, have been so natural and so familiar that I took them for granted. And so I'm really thankful for the people in my life. I'm thankful for the capacity to share space with people. I'm thankful for my neighbors, Greg and Jackie, that showed up. And, Greg and I were doing Qigong this morning. Jackie's usually there. Greg shared some salve for a wound I'm dealing with. In fact, I forgot to mention it, but if you see I have a Band-Aid here, don't let it distract you. It's just a minor surgery. I'm mending another person, so I'll have to kind of invite them in a minute. I assume this will happen throughout, guys, so if you can just, one of the Zoom etiquettes. Welcome. Is it Deanna? Hi. We're just doing the introductions, and I'm doing a little bit of gratitude at the moment. So welcome. So thankful for the people in my life. Thankful for Kevin here, who helped me with tree work today. I'm thankful for the clients that I work for today that, I got to work on their tree, and they support me and actually fed us some amazing venison sausages. I'm just thankful for all the people in my life. I'm thankful for Nate for inviting his community to merge and meet with ours, and just the power that's in networking. And for all the people in our lives, if you reach out to, in your mind, to those you care about, those kind of layers, perhaps you might feel the close ones that you see every day, and you probably know where they are in this moment. Like my wife, she's getting her hair done somewhere. She'll be back soon. So anyway, I'm just thankful for that community. I'm also thankful for the greater community of human beings across the planet. We've all gone through quite a bit together and become perhaps closer through this difficulty, and at least more aware of each other, I'd say. And I'm thankful for everyone I really feel is doing the best they can with the resources they have. And yeah, just feel that for the human family. So, does anyone else feel good about all of those things? All right. So to move through this, gratitude's funny. You can actually get into a journey that encompasses the entire universe, and that takes as long as the universe has been in existence. So I will keep it a little shorter. But this planet, this beautiful home we have, the Earth, sometimes I feel how vulnerable it is floating out in space. And, you know, it's our only one. It's the only one we got. I know Elon wants to go to Mars, maybe as a backup plan, but, you know, probably not as viable as we think. I'm thankful for all the beauty and the magic that surrounds us on this beautiful planet. And the rest of the cosmos, the universe, I'm thankful for this, all of the space and all of the time and all of the matter and energy that is surrounding us in every direction as far as you can imagine, which is a big picture. And beyond that, the powers that be, however you relate to the relations in your life and to the great mystery that is the great mystery. And for anything else I haven't mentioned as we scurry along on this journey of gratitude. So with that, I want to bring our minds and hearts together though for this evening, and as we explore the universe through a couple lenses, a couple different perspectives. So does anyone else feel good about all that? Awesome. So what is this about? You know, maybe I should give a little bit of background. You know, I know probably half the people here pretty well, or maybe more, but I'd like to share a little bit about why you might want to listen to me this evening, and some of my thoughts about these subjects. So I'm actually a native of, not native, I'm a third generation of the Olympic Peninsula here in Sequim, Washington, and grew up as a kid running around in the foothills and on the beach and in the woods. And around the age of 14, discovered a couple books that transformed my life in ways that I couldn't have predicted. And one was The Tracker by Tom Brown Jr. Is everyone in this room familiar with Tom, that lineage? Okay. And another was Tarzan, actually. And for a 14-year-old boy, you know, those were kind of my mentors, and really influenced how I moved through the world. And when I was a little older, I realized after reading these books of Tom's that he had a school. You know, the address was on the back page of the book. And so I went to the school when I was in my early 20s, and was blown away by the depth and the richness of what I'd been reading about, encountering that in real life. And so that journey, you know, that was like a homecoming for me. That was, you know, finding people that were of the same mind and heart, and finding a very meaningful mission. And also there was just the teachings and the roles that the teachings were embodied by really resonated with me, specifically the protector, which became kind of large in my life. And that was expressed, you know, I've also studied martial arts, and that has been a very powerful, I guess, teaching in itself. It's a journey that's transformed me, and also been a place that I've been able to see myself change over time. And I have a way to kind of track that and measure that. So in 2002, I started a fire, and it was a fire with an intention, and it was something that was in response to the seeds of a vision, I suppose, that I had within myself. And I didn't really even have a name. I guess I did have the name for the school at that time, or the training center, Tribal Edge. But that's how it started. It basically started with lighting a sacred fire and inviting anyone that wanted to come and sit around it to join. And beyond that, I didn't have a whole lot. I was 29 years old, 28 years old, and relatively new on the path. I'd been studying with Tom for maybe 7 years by then, but I was deeply passionate about the skills and wanted people to train with. And, this is early 2000s, so there wasn't the cultural paradigm that there is now that's kind of trending in that direction. So there wasn't a lot of awareness. There wasn't the internet. I mean, there was, but not to me, so YouTube wasn't a thing, so there was not a lot of insight into what I was trying to do. And I had trouble articulating it. And so, but I was passionate and I was excited. And it started with, our training center started with my family, as it should, and my close friends. And one thing that's really neat to me is my wife, Victoria, was at our first gathering, that first fire, just kind of happened to be there. We had just met. So that's special. It was a small circle of people. But and that was powerful. But what became more powerful is I dedicated myself to lighting a fire every weekend for the next year. And there was a couple I missed for going to courses or something, but very consistently I lit a fire, and with intention and from a and with the old way, we'll say, and just made it an open container, an open invitation for folks. And we would practice some skills. We might climb some trees. We'd take our shoes off. It was very, very simple and very beautiful. We'd share food and just spend some time outside watching the daylight go to night, sitting around the fire. And so I think what I didn't realize was how powerful that combination was, how powerful the fire was, how powerful the communion with people sitting around the fire was. And that became kind of the heartbeat of our now, what is called Tribal Edge, the training center I have now, and which really blossomed out of that. That's how it started. And I really thank fire for that. I feel like that was, it would definitely wouldn't have been the same if I had tried to, well, it would have been different. But so, that was probably, other than some important ceremonies and fires at in the Pine Barrens with Tom, and some survival fire, working with fires and survival and stuff. That was probably my first real personal commitment with fire, and it was very powerful. So the Tribal Edge since then has, this is our 20-year anniversary. And so we've been working in our community. At this point, I have a number of different programs that have been pretty well received and very, very rewarding to me as well. We offer vision quests and rites of passages for youth. We vision quests for adults and rites of passages for youth. I have a couple of programs that one is called The Journey, which is a year to 5 year long, basically mentorship or apprenticeship in the primal arts or the life supporting skills. And so we have a curriculum around that. So anyway, there's a lot going on, and it's really developed very richly and very powerfully. And if you're interested in some of that, I can turn you onto our website. But I share some of that because there's two elements that were consistently generating the space and the power that we were as a community encountering. And, in the last few years, post-COVID or through COVID, I've kind of had, well, actually it's been longer than that, probably the last 7 years, 5 to 7 years, I've noticed a drift away from participation and community, at least in our local community. You know, and that could be for a number of reasons. I'm not exactly sure why. I have some suspicion that it has to do somewhat with the digital culture, but there's other things as well. There's also my own stage of life shifts and whatnot. So, but regardless, you know, the environment of tribal ed has shifted, and it's going through a new phase. And I've been really kind of reevaluating that vision and looking at some options, and just kind of trying to assess and take this time, this natural downtime, to really pay attention and to listen to whatever guidance I can find on that. And so one of the things that's, you know, come to my heart is this desire to kind of go back to what I started with originally, was more of a mentoring way of sharing. And I've felt a really strong return to that. And so, you know, for a while I was trying to keep up with the trends and keep up with the the marketing on digital platforms and whatnot. And, you know, it's just totally overwhelming for me. I mean, I'm pretty much a primate. I mean, we're all primates, but I'm like a ridiculous primate. I climb trees for a living. My skills are wasted in that area, and I don't have enough infrastructure to really to push that right now. So I'm kind of drifting back towards mentorship and a path of teaching that involves deeper training. So I started, the first 10 years or so was very focused on kind of introductory stuff, which I think was appropriate at the beginning of a program. And then it became a little deeper, a little more extended, you know, these longer programs. And now I feel like there's been enough of a base built in our curriculum that I want to do these deep dives into specific skills. So one of the kind of the medicines of tribal age in the past has been doing these kind of generalist, kind of broad, universal approaches that makes everyone kind of good at everything. You know, you get a little survival, a little tracking, a little combat, a little healing, and unless you're around for 10 years, you really don't get to dive deep into these things. So I'm kind of shifting gears right now to go into a deeper dive and these these deeper dive journeys. And so that's what I want to talk about this evening, is a couple of these journeys. So that's just a little bit of background on Tribal Edge and myself. And man, it's been really, really powerful. It's been so rewarding, and at times, especially in the last couple of years, a little disillusioning. I've had some stumbles, and I really appreciate the support I have around me, my friends, and those that I seek counsel with. And so, and I'm really inspired to get some response to this idea. I've been throwing stuff out there for years, the last couple of years, you know, just little ideas, creating these things, and, you know, get a little interest here, a little there. And then I talked to Nate and was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you be interested in collaborating? Because Nate happens to have, if I can speak for him, also obviously a lot of experience in these same dimensions. So he's written a book called Primal, and also a book on fire, which and Nate was one of the instructors actually when I was at my first coyote mentoring class in 2000, which when we get to the sacred circle, that was one of the seeds for that teaching for me. And so I'm really thankful and appreciate Nate's influence in my life, and just want to also, I don't see him there, but I want to honor him for that and for his support. And should this program take off, if we have enough people, Nate's been willing to help with a couple courses, a couple sessions. So he's going to be kind of a guest instructor, which I'm excited about. So excited to collaborate with him. Okay, so that's a little bit of the origin story. There's so much. I'm presently kind of realizing that I haven't had a chance to do a lot of teaching in the last 2 years, and so I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with how much wants to come through. So I apologize if I start rambling a little bit. I need to kind of tighten it up. So, but I'm just super excited. So anyway, let's go to, let me just kind of, there's a response from Nate. Thank you, sir. So let's look at, what is the Sacred Series? So this is in response to my desire to dive deeply into courses. So what I've seen over the years is, and this is good, this happened, this is necessary, but it's a lot of kind of introductory type work. I see people for a day class in survival, and they may be in that day, they learn how to make a fire without matches, so they get a bow drill fire or something, and that's super exciting. And sometimes, they stick around and want to learn more, and sometimes they think, oh, okay, did that, I know what that is now, and move on. And it makes me sad when I see that, because I know the skills and these practices are so rich and so deep and so rewarding and give us so much that to see them kind of experienced in a flash in the pan or superficial kind of, I don't mean superficial like it's not meaningful, I just mean it's a glance, of an experience. I feel the power and the wisdom that is behind these skills that have been given to us aching to come forward, and so what I want to do, and what I've been able to do with some people that have had the privilege of mentoring, is journey with people in some of these skills. And to me, that is, the best word I can think of that defines that kind of journey is the word sacred. And I'm gonna, in fact, ask you guys a question here in a moment about that. But the idea of journeying is I think one of the distinctions that is connects us to the power of these teachings and these practices. So, in our current world, we need to have, we're these are new trends. I mean, these ancient skills and practices are re-emerging, and so it makes a lot of sense that they are just kind of these fires are just reigniting, in terms of there's lots of primitive skill schools now, there's lots of nature schools, and it's like what I'm noticing is there's enough of them present that we need to build on it. We have a base now, we have a foundation, and we need to go a little deeper. We need to really start to seek the wisdom that's available. And so, in contrast to, say, what it feels like a large percentage of some of it is available, say, on YouTube or on, it's informational. And I think as a culture, we tend to be very satisfied with information and maybe knowledge, but what we're lacking is wisdom, and I'm not claiming to have wisdom, but I am in pursuit of it. I am seeking it. And I feel like that journeying with practices, journeying sacredly over time is one of the ways that we can access wisdom. And we're obviously in a culture, in a world right now that is literally dying for wisdom, so anyway, so that's part of the incentive here, or the intention that I'm feeling. And so from what I've seen, the experiences that I miss are these deep dives into one skill, fire, And in the way I'm going to explain it and the way we do this, fire isn't just fire is the thing, because they are all very complex and deeply connected to everything else. So anyway, so before I go too much further, I called this the Sacred Series. And I'd like to ask you guys what your sense of sacred is, or what does sacred mean to you? If anyone would like to share their thoughts on that, I would love to hear that, because I want to talk about that word a little bit and kind of explore some of these ideas. So if anyone has something to say about that.
I can say something.
Lovely.
I consider myself a recovering scientist, and I grapple with the word sacred for a while. And to me, now it represents something that is a deep connection with something that's bigger than me, kind of reverence and ethics.
Something bigger than you. I love that. Yeah. What else comes to your heart when you hear that word?
For me, it's something that has great importance and that I feel that others should also hold as important in their lives.
Any other last minute thoughts?
Sure. In India, we say our culture ranges from the profane to the sacred. And that's always been a very interesting prospect, right? Because that just, to me, it means that every single moment is in itself the presence that you offer it.
Mm.
That's really how I hold that vessel from the profane. It's all just a part of the entirety and the presence and in the moment, and how we offer ourselves to what is really happening in that time, in that moment.
Lovely. I love that continuum idea too. Life is not as simple as two options.
Something I was thinking of that just popped into my head was something ancestral, something that goes way, way back and speaking of the continuum, way back ancestrally to before human and beyond, and now to our current times, and how that continuum flows and what brings us all together.
Mm. That's cool. That's a cool, for me, that's a cool bridge to what I refer to as primal as well, which they may not even be distinguishable.
I was going to say something that survives the ages, so that kind of sounds like where I was going with it, but I just wasn't quite sure how I was going to word that.
Nice. Well, unless someone has another thought on it, I just wanted to share a little story that may help frame my my understanding of sacred. And so out of my land, or the land. I don't really like to call it my land, but I have our training center, our wild space is out in Blinn, if you're familiar with Squim at all. And I'm neighbors of the Sklallam tribe. We share a border or a boundary line. And, it's really a beautiful piece of, beautiful land. And, to me, the whole place is sacred. And beyond, it doesn't stop there either, by the way. But I just want to share how, give you an example. So if I can explain this, maybe I'll show you a picture. I can do this. I can do this. Where's the screen share? All right. So did that give you my desktop? All right. So I'll just leave this picture on here while I tell you this little story. So you can kind of see there's a transition in the ground from looks like kind of a worn, dirty spot to the grass, and then on out to that line where the shadow is, and then the trees. So that circle right here is actually made by a piece of rope. It's a thick piece of rope. It's a couple inches in diameter. And it's a rope that I used to use with our kids class. We had a homeschool program, and we'd do tug of wars with it. We'd use it for games. We did everything with this rope, And probably about 10 years ago, after class, I would be dragging the rope to, clean up afterwards and stuff. And I just kind of drag it, and it ended up making a circle as I walked, as I turned, and I just kind of left it laying there as a circle, and then I'd go about my day or whatever. And I'd do that once in a while after we played with it. The rope would end up in a tree sometimes, or it would be used for something else. I've pulled logs with the rope. I've done all these things. But after these classes, I'd start to, it's kind of, this little spot became where the rope belonged. So I started to put the rope back. I would lay it in this circle. Well, over time, that circle became more and more defined, and I started to put it in even pay more attention to exactly where the rope was laying. And it started to, because of the patterns of our play in our use, it started to actually form a context or an environment with the rope. So then we had this kind of more worn in spot, and it became easier for me to see where to lay the rope. But and this just became a habit. I didn't really think about it for probably the first year. I just kind of like put the rope back. But after a couple of years of the rope just being there and creating this circle, the rope actually, it's funny, at some point the name of the rope, or I'm sorry, the space that the rope was containing became known as the circle. And I don't remember the shift, but it just happened one day. One day I noticed, hey, let's go over to the circle for this game, or the kids were like, hey, are we doing this by the circle, or whatever. So it went from a rope to a circle, and it kind of shifted its identity. It became a space, right? And now when the rope was used, I was very conscious of this rope. I was like, wow, I better put it back at the circle, because that's where it belongs. This isn't a rope anymore. This is part of that circle. And it happened to be the perfect length for all kinds of, or the perfect diameter, that circle, for all kinds of events. So over time, let's see, a couple more years passed, maybe 5 years, and this spot's getting worn in. And this is right in the center of our training center, by the way. Our central fire is just from the screen's perspective, to the right a little ways. And one day a friend of mine came to visit, and this is where it really struck me. So we're walking towards the fire, and he happened to look over, and he's just like, so what's with that circle? I'm like, what do you mean, the rope? And he's like, no, what's with that space over there? It's like it attracted him, right? His eyes went there. And he had actually been visiting because he was getting married. And he was looking for a space to get married. And so after looking around the land and all these different trees and down by the creek and all the different spaces for places that would be beautiful for a wedding, he's like, you know what about right there? And so, it was that circle. The circle is where he felt called, and eventually, of course, ended up getting married in that circle. So, then the circle became this place that had this really powerful memory. And, as I remember it now, there was a whole community of people that were surrounding the circle with the bride and the groom in the middle, and the whole wedding was actually, they created the wedding in a circle. You know how it's usually like a line, like you walk up the alley or the whatever it is, kind of like corridor, and they walk up front and everyone's facing the front. Well, this wedding was a circle. It was a ring of people witnessing this wedding. And I remember being in that circle in that moment, just going, wow, this is cool. Feeling this kind of shift the identity of the place, but also the whole land. Well, of course, over time, that rope started to get pushed into the ground. And after being walked on and just being laying there for so long, and now I can't even pull it out without really disturbing the soil. The grass is kind of growing over it. And it's a permanent fixture. It's been dedicated. In fact, some of the more important events in my life have taken place in that circle. I did my my instructorship training, my guru title for our martial art in that circle. It was a 2-day test, and I've done a vision quest in that circle. I mean, this circle has taken on so much meaning at this point. There's been numerous events that have happened there, and of course the rope helped to create that boundary, but at this point it far transcends that rope. It's a place, on the land. So so I guess, to me, this is just an example of how things can become, or how things are sacred. And sacredness can be seen as a relationship that is inexhaustible with something, So in a way, I'm kind of part of the paradigm of where I'm going with these courses in general is a shift from kind of our Western approach of thingness and things are what is important. It was that rope, or it's that place, that is important. It's actually this process of unfolding relationships over time, where it kept giving and it kept growing in meaning, and it kept developing. And that's a strange thing, it's not something you can directly point to. It's in that other space. And so, when we look at something like a fire, and a fire it's an ancient tool. It's a tool, but the strange thing about tools is they aren't things we just use. They're things that shape us as we use them, right? So it's not enough to think of them as something that is just available when you need it, and when I need it, I'll go use it, and then I'll put it back. And tools, and using tools is potentially one of the things that defines us as human beings. It's a very old relationship. When our ability, our capacity to extend ourselves into other things in that way is very unique, and some animals use tools and very similarly in some ways. However, our humanness allows us to use tools that are in ways that are so complex and abstract. I mean, look at us sitting here on the internet, staring at a screen and feeling like we're with other people. You know, that is a profound capacity, you know. There's pixels on this screen. I'm talking to this machine thing, and I feel like I'm connecting to all of you wherever you are, like we're sitting around a campfire. It's very strange, you know. And so that capacity, and yeah, so anyway, that I just want to kind of bring up as our capacity to interact with tools has a depth, a potential, or a capability to go very, very deep. And so we can kind of interact with a fire. We can use a fire, right? That's what we say. We use it to cook, or we use it to warm ourselves, or whatever. But a fire has the potential to be something that far transcends our original contact with it. You know, for me personally, fires have been huge teachers in my life. I have sat around fires with groups of people that over time began to, you know, and I'm open to what we might call, you know, spiritual concepts and all of that. I'm not, but I'm also kind of skeptical of woo-woo stuff, you know, in general. But or categories of woo-woo that are maybe magical or naive in that sense. So, but I do believe in a very a kind of a deeper sense of a profound mystery, right? Which is a different way of looking at things. And but anyway, so with fires, I've had experiences, especially with ceremonies, but even with fires that were just treated sacredly. You know, I had a fire with a group of people that we met with. We met around this fire for 12 years, every week, with really deep intention. And that fire, it's a humble little fireplace or fire ring, but that fire is magic. It's one of those. It's another space at my land that kind of grew into that kind of sacredness, as I talked about with the rope. And even to the point where, you know, having seen a lot of fires and made a lot of fires, I kind of understand. I have a connection to how fire should behave, you know, in a normal baseline. But, you know, watching a fire emerge out of really kind of not the best materials on a rainy or windy day, and just be like this fire that's like, no, you're impossible. What do you know, how are you doing this? Some of these things just make me kind of open up my mind and my heart to fire and what it has to teach. So, you know, there's any skill can be taken to in a sacred way. It can be journeyed with in a sacred way, and in the way that I'm talking about, right? It can be expanded. Everything is infinitely more rich and complex than we can imagine. You know, I mean, we take things for granted. It's actually overwhelming. I mean, one of the core assumptions that I start with all of our teachings is that everything is mystery, you know. And I don't just mean everything's like you don't know a lot of things. That's obvious, you know. There's a lot of things I don't know. That's all mystery, right? I mean, also, besides those things, everything you think you know is deeply mysterious. Like it's infinitely mysterious. If you've been in a relationship with someone for over time, maybe you're married or with someone for a long time, this becomes obvious pretty quick. I mean, there's things I'm learning about my wife that I'm just like, what? How in the world have I not noticed this or understood this before? You know, and I find this everywhere I look, honestly. You know, it's a choice. It's a choice to look deeply into things. So to me, that's looking at things sacredly. Does anyone here do the practice of the sit area or the sacred area? Familiar with that? Nate probably teaches that. Wilderness awareness teaches it. Tom Brown taught it. you know, it's this practice of going to a place. Oh, got someone trying to come in. It's a practice of going to a personal space, generally in nature, repeatedly, and building a relationship with it over time. And in with a sacred area, I mean, is it the place? Is it the super cool little spot that you visit by that tree? Is that what makes it sacred? Is it sacred because it's that place? You know, are there sacred places? Or is it sacred because of the relationship that you have developed by continuously opening your heart there and allowing yourself to be changed by that place, and then going back into the world as a changed person, seeing the world differently, coming back to that place again, having more insights and deeper shifts, and doing this kind of you know, this rhythm in this place. So you know, I would argue that that is what makes that space sacred. There are special spots, obviously. There's places that are exceedingly beautiful to human beings, and you know, perhaps many unique things have happened there, but it's, if we look for it in the relationship, that's what makes the sacred possible anywhere and everywhere. I just want to welcome my friend Q. I assume Pat Quintus is my buddy Q. Welcome.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Hi, everybody.
So, you know, and what it takes to the you know, I'm taking the time to talk about this because this thing I'm talking about, developing a sacred relationship with something, takes time. There's no way around it, you know. It moves at the speed of life. And so whatever we are wanting to grow with, you know, we are told consistently that, you know, we have to hurry, you know, keep busy, do all this stuff. And I assume most people in this group aren't subscribing to that, or trying not to. I mean, we kind of get caught up in it, right? But hopefully, you know, you can realize that that's a choice and a mythology of a sort. But the sacred journey, or this kind of sacred journey, this slowing down and expanding the thing in front of you, not trying to get more, not trying to compile more stuff, but actually having the stuff, whatever it is, and expanding the mystery in it and allowing it to grow right in front of you. That's the type of journey I'm talking about. So we can take any skill. Like I said, I have chosen two of the skills, or two of the tools, that have been the most powerful, the most consistent, and the most present in my work at Tribal Edge, and that is fire, or the sacred fire, and the medicine wheel. And initially, when I put this idea together, I was actually just doing a program on the medicine wheel, because I had some friends ask about it, and I was like, man, you know, I just really have personally had some shifts in my relationship with the medicine wheel in the last 5 years or so that I feel are valuable and wanted to share. But also, it's just been one of the most present and powerful, potent tools that I've used in my life, and also in designing everything that is Tribal Edge. So that was one. And then while I was doing that, I'm like, you know, if I think about it, that's a little bit esoteric and a little bit, you know, it's awesome, but a lot of people might want something a little more grounding. And so I realized, I was like, I have to do one with fire. That's the other super tool that I've had the most experience with and have walked the deepest with, and think that in some ways it's actually very well represents the medicine wheel or the sacred circle. They are very connected, and especially in the way I use them. So so that's how those two things came up. And so that's my intention with these courses, is to do this sacred journey, this slow and deeper walk, this walk that's seeking wisdom, not just knowledge. And this is an experiential thing, and there's not really a way around that. It's there's different types of knowledge. There's the propositional knowledge, like, there's things I know, there's facts and there's beliefs and all that, right? But there's also knowledge that is based on perspectives and experience and skills and participation. And so all of those are ingredients in this program. So anyway, so now I need to look at the time. I've been rambling, and why don't we shift a little bit to we could do maybe a few questions, and then I can just give some details on these particular courses if there's material you need beyond what I put on my website. I'd like to, the purpose of this evening is basically just to share these courses and make them more real for you. And then if there's enough interest, then one of them or both of them will go. So that's what's on the table. Yeah, so let's just based on what I've been talking about so far, or if there's anything specific you guys have any questions about, why don't we I'm going to take a break from talking. How about that? Who's familiar with the medicine wheel in this group, or the sacred circle? Okay. And you can use the chat too if you guys want on the your camera's off. I'm just kind of curious what that means to people. I intentionally use the term sacred circle, partly because I feel it's more universal, and also to not step on anyone's toes, because it's a transcultural technology. It's very old and it's found all over the world in different ways, different forms. But Kevin had a question, is that right? He turns off his camera.
That wasn't what I meant to do. I meant to turn on my, I accidentally clicked them both. I'm reminded of your actual image for Tribal Edge. Were you using the sacred circle in your first, I still have it when I'm.
Cool. Yeah, the triangle circle, that's interesting actually, because the cool thing about symbols is they can hold more things than you can think of in them, more things than you can hold in your mind, in a way. And so it means a lot of things to me. But yeah, one of them, the alchemical symbol for fire is a triangle, right? And then you have the sacred circle, and in my logo, if you look at it, it's actually, the circle is actually more fluid. It's more like a swoosh. It's not a clean circle, and the triangle is. So there's a few things in there. Part of their relationship too, the fire and the sacred circle. The sacred circle could be, one another name for it is like the wheel of life, and the kind of behind that is it's honoring what it means to be a living thing. And fire, in a way, compared to a lot of our other tools seems like a living thing. You know, if you think about it, there's attributes of fire that allow it to seem like it's alive. And yeah, so anyway, that's part, to me, that's why those two tools go together so well. One is they're both examples of dynamic living systems, or dynamic systems anyway, maybe not quite alive. Well, no immediate questions. Would anyone, let me ask you questions. Would anyone like to know more about, I'm just going to keep going here. So if you need to go, won't hurt my feelings. You're welcome to stay though. I could talk a little bit about the medicine wheel specifically if you like, or I could just start talking about details for these courses. On one hand, details, or more explanation.
I'd like to hear more about the medicine wheel.
Cool. More medicine, said Nandita. All right. So yeah, the medicine wheel. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it. Oh, thank you, Nate. Awesome. How do things relate to protector teachings? Or these things, maybe? Is that the question? Let's just talk about the medicine wheel a little bit. So there's different expressions of this thing I'm going to be explaining, and I tend to teach or tend to describe things from what I consider a primal level, primal perspective. And to me, primal means kind of like what we were touching on earlier. It's very close, similar to sacred, which is the core, essential, and original aspects of something. Over time, and the thing, and in the sense that for as a human being, it has to do with the things that perhaps touch the most people over time as well. So what are those constants that we all rely on, and we all are in many ways dependent on, that we might not even know? I heard a quote recently that culture, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was by. I just saw the quote and I was like, oh, that is lovely. And it was, culture is the song that nobody hears, but everyone is dancing to. And if you think about it, you know, there's the medicine wheel has a nature that is highly symbolic, and it's what it's trying to point at, I feel, is the unseen. And so we have the explicit parts of life, you know, we have the obvious and the physical parts of life that we're very involved in, and all that. And then we have the aspects of life that are invisible to us. And I don't just mean like woo-woo spiritual or anything. I mean, it's that too, right? But I also just mean like how this works, like what's going on here. And so I think simply, you know, one of the beautiful things of the medicine wheel is that it's something that reveals the relationships between the seen and the unseen. And that word relationships, I mean, is very important. So there's many aspects of the medicine wheel as a symbol, which are indicating relationships. So the structure of it, usually, you know, the circle, we'll just start with that. You know, the circle is an extremely simple symbol, which allows it to mean many, many things, right? And when you start to place things within a circle or upon a circle or connect things to a circle, you're starting to reveal relationships. So it's like connecting the dots, right? As you draw. So if there's a number of us sitting around a fire and we took a ball of string and we passed it, maybe you've done this exercise, you pass it to your neighbor. And what happens by the time it gets around is you have a visual of this relationship, this connection. Well, if we took that same ball of string and I started to pass it across the fire as well, and to every other person, we get this web, right? We get this really cool. Can you guys follow that visual? So, and the string itself in that situation would be a representation of the relationships that we all have, right? Now, if you could do that between everything, it would become so enmeshed and so such a dense structure of web that it just become kind of one thing, right? It becomes like this unity, which is arguably what reality is, So here we are living in this way that's feels like there's just a bunch of things out there. There's a me, there's a you, there's a cup over there, there's my car outside, there's a tree over there, right? That's the world that we function in, but that is not even close a fair representation of what the world is or what reality is, because what we're not including in that simple picture, that functional picture, is all of the relationships. So if we were to treat relationships as real as things, like I literally mean relationships, treat them as real as things, so they count. If we added all of those up in the equation, now we're starting to see a closer picture of what reality might look like, which is part of why I say, everything is mystery, because that picture is completely overwhelming. Okay. If you look at everything and its relationships over time, that's completely overwhelming to the average human brain. Okay. There's just too much stuff. So what we do to operate is we simplify things, and we make representations and models of things. So if you guys have done any like problem solving, maybe you're trying to give someone directions somewhere, and you can give them a map that is super duper detailed. Maybe it's like a camping or a trails map. It's got like the topography and it's got all the landmarks and everything, and it's all scale. It's like that's awesome, super helpful. Depends on what's going on though. If you're just trying to help someone find a gas station and you go to that length to draw a map like that, you're going to be drawing for a while and they're going to be running out of gas, right? So maybe a crayon on the back of a napkin is better, just a few lines to help them find the directions. On the other hand, if you go to extremes and you go to like this rigorous computer generated representation of reality that's got every blade of grass and every drop of water, you have this map that is so cumbersome and so complex, and it might as well just be reality. It's like that's not doing anyone any good either. That's just too detailed. So finding this this balance between not too much detail but enough to convey the information that you need for whatever your purpose is in the moment is really an important skill to be able to do. So the medicine wheel is and this is my interpretation, by the way, right? So I'm not just making declarations of what it is. I have a relationship to it that I've developed over the last 20 plus years. And so that's what I'm sharing from. I was taught it in a certain way and I respect that and still use that. And if we were to do this course, I would still build upon that. But it also kind of goes beyond that because I've embodied it to some degree. So So when it comes to trying to figure out stuff in life, to solve problems, or to orient and to make decisions and decide, especially nowadays, where to put our attention, you know, we're immediately overwhelmed unless we have some sort of a framework, you know. So for example, I mean, even this little square that my head is in, you know, for this show, it's a limited frame. It's not giving you my whole house and everything that's going on in the neighborhood, and you know, it just goes zip. It's like, yeah, this much. And Zoom figured out we need this much of me to be a coherent conversation, you know. And that's actually pretty interesting. And so that's what we call a frame. And what we do as people is we frame reality constantly. We're constantly you could think of it as filtering, but also deciding what is relevant in any situation. And we're letting that come to the foreground, and we're letting everything else kind of go to the background with our attention. So, I mean, if we're sitting here talking and your house catches on fire, suddenly anything I have to say is gone, right? And who cares? It's like, deal with that fire. And that's just how life is. And so everything, to some degree, especially if you're trying to walk in a sacred way, everything is so rich and so mysterious and so unending that it's asking for your attention. And that's completely overwhelming. And so where do we point our attention? Well, the medicine wheel offers a framework to help you see into your world for whatever your mission in life is. And it can be relevant to any scale and any project, any situation. It could be this conversation. It could be the next 10 years of your life. It could be a whole community. But whatever, you know, I'm just going to call it the problem, whatever you're working on, whatever your mission is, if you were to look at it through the framework of the medicine wheel, it gives you a, I don't want to say predetermined, but it kind of gives you some constraints to guide your attention so that you're not overwhelmed by every possibility. And the constraints that it provides are tried and tested by the creative process of nature. They're an ancient alignment of the constraints of the universe, if you want to think of it that way. So and in that way, to me, I trust them because I trust this tool because I've seen this pattern before, and I've seen it. The structure of this tool is reliable because it's played itself out as a cycle in all of creation over time, and you start to see it everywhere. You start to see it in the at the micro level and in the macro level. And so when I look at my life through that frame, just like this little frame here, when I look at my life through that frame, I start to pick up on patterns that are relevant and meaningful to my life and make connections that are relevant and meaningful and let everything else kind of just go, you know? And it does that in a holistic and a balanced way. It's not just like a problem solving tool that you might use as a business move or something. This is a holistic, life generating, multi perspectival tool, right? That holds enough things that whatever you're working on, if all of those things are honored or respected or accounted for, all those perspectives are included, whatever you're working on is going to be optimal. It's going to work in the best way it can. So, you know, if you're building a community, or if you are having an event, or you're working on a skill, and you are, you know, embedded in a journey with something, or in a relationship, any kind of project or any kind of endeavor can be perceived through this tool. So I'm speaking a little bit in generalities and being kind of vague right now. I'm not saying how it exactly, or I'm not giving you a description of what it looks like, right? But I'm explaining its function. And if you're interested in how it takes form, I would love to do that with you, but that would be over time in a journey process. So partly because there is a mistake of saying, here's what the medicine wheel is and here's what it looks like. Because especially if you're not familiar with it, just like any new thing, we tend to just latch onto the first form we encounter and go, oh, okay, this is it then. And for example, one of the medicine wheels, the animal or the entity placeholders for the directions, and I'm getting way ahead of myself even with the directions, but these placeholders, for example, if we could say the north is the buffalo, and the south is the mouse, and the east is the eagle, and okay, so if you go, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything in and of itself unless you have a relationship, first of all, to buffaloes and mice and eagles. But it can be a little misleading to just kind of give you a fixed definition of what it is. What I'm actually trying to explain is the principles of what's behind it and how it works. So anyway, so that was a little rant, but let's see. Thanks, Nate. See you later. So anyway, this is kind of, I start from the beginner introductory perspective, but then it's going to go off deeper and deeper into the building a relationship with this thing. So this thing, I hate to even call it a thing, the medicine wheel. It's you can call it a tool, I suppose, but its power lies in your relationship to it. It's not something that's just going to lay around like a hammer, and be available when you need it. What happens is the medicine wheel begins to you begin to embody it. This is a way of seeing and looking at the world that will actually shift your the patterning of your thinking and start to self-organize, and you will start to perceive in ways that are, with some training, with some practice, that will become very useful and very I think what I'm trying to say is it leads towards wisdom. So anyway, so that's trying to describe the medicine wheel in a nutshell. The way I actually teach it is very experiential and just kind of give through assignments and through practices. I introduce a little bit of theory or some theme or aspect of the medicine wheel, and then we have some sort of exercise or experience to work with for a while until you start to actually encounter an embodied relationship to whatever that lesson was, and and play with it, in the way that we maybe learn to play an instrument. You play, it's like you practice, but it's more than that. It's like a serious play, if you want to call it that. So and then these things just kind of stack up over time, and something emerges, and this is it's very kind of an unpredictable thing, but it emerges and takes on a life of its own, which may be another way of saying spirit. So anyway, I want to we have some people having to leave. I had a couple other questions here. What do you use to look at, evaluate relationships? Do you use the medicine wheel? Yes, I do. I can't not at this point. This thing, I'm patterned to do this, but yeah, and I know it's a very powerful look at any developmental journey or process.
Hey, Ben.
It's a way of mapping change. So anyway,
Ben,
yes.
I'm a little confused. I feel like I really get the effort that you're trying to put into explaining this. Some of it feels real vague to me in trying to wrap my head around the
Well,
concept. The term,
that's
the medicine wheel itself, is distracting to me because I've heard you speak about the medicine wheel for, a few years now, being your friend, and I'm really trying to. Can you give us maybe an example of
sure.
how you would use that in interpreting a potential friendship, or how, I forget how the person put that in the text before, but maybe if you gave us that, it would help me understand.
Absolutely. And it's very fair that the word medicine wheel was distracting, by the way. That's part of the reason I didn't use it in the and I just kind of started slipping into using it interchangeably with sacred circle. So let me just describe what medicine wheel means. So medicine wheel was you could say, the white person's interpretation of or the English interpretation of something that the indigenous cultures in North America were trying to explain. And it translates better, or a more complete translation would be, see, medicine really referred to power, right? Or a capacity or a potential. So, I have part of my medicine is that of the protector. That's part of the way I see the world and the way I embody the world and way I embody my life in the world. And so everything in that sense has its medicine. It's like its unique capacity, its personality or constitution. Okay. So we've talked about in astrology your Taurus, right? If you don't mind me sharing that. But that earth energy, right? So there's there's aspects of human beings that can be like the earth. What is that, right? There's a quality and a potential. And I'm not saying you're made of dirt. Well, I mean, you're made of matter, so kind of, right? But there's something, when we think about earth, what is it? It's the density, it's the heaviness, it's the resistance to motion. It's this immovableness, right? Or whatever. It's also
groundedness for me. That's how.
Yeah, right. Stability, that kind of stuff. So those are the things that are what we're really trying to get to, and we use earth as a symbol. So that's an example of medicine too. So being grounded is kind of your medicine. It's one of them. You have many, but and to try and simplify a person down to one, I think, is a mistake. But so that's part of the name medicine wheel. The wheel part is referring to the circle. And the circle is actually referring to a cycle. Okay, it's referring to process and journey. It's trying to show that things are never what they seem, are always more than they seem, and things are always in the process of becoming something else. And so saying medicine wheel is a way to honor those things in combination. So we have the cycling and renewing of power, and so that's maybe another way to describe the name.
So are you saying the sacred circle and the medicine wheel are interchangeable terms for the same thing?
For our purposes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and sorry for that jump. I kind of forgot to explain that. There's a lot of names for it because it is so meaningful in so many different ways in so many different cultures.
Mhm.
So, but its symbolic representation is pretty consistent. You know, all of the mandala, not all of them, many mandalas, especially the ones that have like a four-part matrix kind of thing, or cycle, and they're often fractal. You know, they'll show like a bigger one that zooms into a smaller one kind of thing. You know, or branches off. Those are all patterns that are consistently found in different cultures, and often are speaking to the same type of process, which is this, you know, renewal of power or cycling of power, which can also be described scientifically as the complex dynamic system. You know, so when you have a system is like a tree is a system, right? So it's a interaction of, it's a flow of nutrients, of energy, you know, sunlight, water, soil, all these things. You know, we look at it and it looks like this concrete thing, but that's just not its true nature. It's this flow. So what is that flow? You know, and it lives, it has a seed, or it starts as a seed, it grows and dies. It's like, and everything seems to do that. Everything that has this flowness to it, you know, even if we zoom out all the way to the whole universe is expanding and then cooling and going through this massive ancient living life death process, right? So the medicine wheel is trying, or the sacred circle is trying to capture that and represent that symbolically and honor it that way. And when we can tap into that process at all these different levels, we start to see it in everything all the time. And so what that can give us, I suppose, is a better way to, well, for one thing it can give us is a sense of certainty in an otherwise uncertain, because there are patterns, you know, things play out in a certain way. There is this meta pattern going on, and we can see it in a story or a movie, you know, the beginning, the crescendo, the end, you know. We can see it in our own lives. We can see it in the healing of a wound, you know. We can see it in a relationship cycle. So it's very you know, it's helpful to start with these instances or examples of its expression, but and those can be distracting almost immediately. So and you know, I can't get into it too much further without just starting the whole freaking course, you know. So because it is a process, but and I don't want to cheapen that.
No, that helped. You know, I feel, you know, I have a better understanding from what
Cool.
your answer. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to hear about the fire.
the sacred fire.
Yeah.
Well, let me just kind of describe the course. Maybe that'll take care of that one. Basically, I'm gonna do, you know, journeying with fire. Fire is neat because it's a physical thing, so it's a tangible. You know, there's many instances of fire, and you can actually get feedback from fire. It has qualities that change. It's not the same. It's not the same every time you go to it, and you have to interact with it. It is, in that sense, kind of this living thing. And so fire in itself has many ways can teach us about this same dynamic process, the same wheel of life, right? Because a fire itself goes through that process. It goes from preparation to ignition, or building to ignition, you know, to use and function, to dying out and to going, right? So there it is again. And so so fire can be the teacher that way, but I'm also just using fire as a we're just going to get to know fire. So we're actually going through the many uses of fire. So, and the many skill sets that are involved. And I think there seems to be a natural tendency for things to go from a physical kind of skill-based connection to things to a little more of a internal and deeper, maybe esoteric relationship to them. And that's obvious, that's natural. The more time you have with something, the deeper the relationship is. Fire could be taught without relationship at all. And that's what I want to avoid. I want to bring in the presence of that relationship as we do it. And and it's also just kind of an example. It's an example of any craft or skill that you are spending time with. I mean, you're an artist, and you have this knowing with your art. There's the materials, the raw materials and their function and how stuff works, but there's this expression, and that's all relationship. That's all unique to you and your identity and your relationship to those materials. So fire is a practical but also artistic way to experience that same process. So my intention is to just start with every step of fire and to take the time to learn the many skills that are hiding within the skill of fire. So fire is a tool, but there's also skills. There's skills of building fire, because no fire is the same. Sometimes it's different materials, sometimes for different purposes. I mean, a garbage fire is different than a ceremonial fire and those extremes, right? As Dita said, from the profane to the sacred. But so is a cooking fire, and so is a fire that you need to use to smoke a hide or generate smoke with, or create a lot of light with, or to warm stones with so you can have a good night's sleep. So there's all of these different functions that we very practical functions that we've used fire for forever, that I would like to take the time to explore with in a journey with fire. And it leads towards kind of this relationship to fire as a teacher, as a healer even. Fire has this powerful transformational capacity and has been used in that sense forever as well. Part of the alchemical tradition looks at it that way. Fire is the element of change, So it's this practical but also deeper journey with that element. And it's intended for people that maybe have built some fires and enjoy survival and that kind of stuff, or camping, but also maybe don't realize how much there is to the art of fire, and want to know it more completely. So yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Ben, may I say something about the medicine wheel?
Please.
I was just thinking that was a really good question he had, right? And I just wanted to say that for me, it's been sort of a, practically speaking, outside of the really esoteric meaning of what it really embodies, it also embodies a practical essence, which is, for me, I've used it as a cornerstone to sort of understand what is happening in my life, right? And I think that is also like within like the microcosm of the macrocosm. So for me, it's also been like, okay, so I'm going through this period of my life. So what is happening? So I can look at the whole picture in its like little parts. And I think that thing that the medicine wheel has offered me, right? Practically speaking, not just from an esoteric perspective, but from a practical perspective that I can ground it down on this earth, which is because I am still living here. If I'm going through something or I'm doing something, like if I can look at it from that perspective of what part of the cycle I'm in, I think it's always helped me sort of understand where I am and what's happening outside of even the birds or the animals or the colors and all of that. It's just the essence of what's happening is the essence of what's happening in my life, right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very helpful for me to be like, okay, this is the essence of what it is. So I know that if that's the essence, then the essence is moving and the essence is going to move into the next space. And I think that's what's really helpful for me with the medicine wheel, which has been that we know that the essence is it's always churning, but it's just, it helps me ground myself in that space, in that time, to know that this is a constantly changing space.
That's lovely. Yeah. Thank you. You know, and what you touched on there is its nature as a, in a sense, once you understand this pattern, it can be kind of a predictive tool, right? For, like you said, knowing what's coming next. So maybe you're in a certain stage of your life or a certain stage of a project, and you're just like, oh, I'm at the hard part. This is rough, you know? Well, you know, we've lived through this pattern enough to know that it's not all, nothing can always be anything. So it's not going to be rough forever. But in fact, there's this kind of release stage after the rough, right? And then there's that turning into the fruit of what was so hard after all. And yeah. So thanks, Dita.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, this might that that might have been a little esoteric, you know. My mind's been floating around in this space of I've had a few blown minds lately, and so I apologize if it was not quite grounded enough for you guys, but if you are interested in continuing the conversation in another form, it would be fun to do that together. So.
Oh, wait, I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry. I have to say one thing. As a student of Ben for many years, I'm just going to say this. I really need to tell all of you this. This idea of freedom within constraints is a fabulous idea. And if any one of you is considering doing this, I have, as someone who's never been into it, it was absolutely one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. So I am just telling you, if you even like mildly consider this, he didn't tell me to do this. I'm just doing this because I love Ben and he's an amazing teacher and you will love it. So please do it. Okay.
Wow, thank you, Dita. So that said, in order for this to happen, you know, I'm going to kind of need a minimum of people, but you know, I have all the information I think one needs on the website, but basically journey-wise, what I'm looking at is a once a month meeting to well, here's one more thing I want to say, especially with a small group. I originally started as I said, the Sacred Circle as a course and the Sacred Fire as a parallel course. Both of them would blend very well, but they're also for perhaps different interests. Last night I was talking to Victoria and I'm like, I might be limiting myself. Why don't I do this and make them one course? So that's also a possibility. If I don't have enough people for both, I might actually just combine them and offer that. And I almost think that would be more rewarding. So someone is trying to come in. Well, a little late, but we'll see. So, but basically it's a once a month thing, and I'm looking at making it possibly hybrid, meaning for the folks that live around here that wanted to do it, we can meet physically and practice, or do the practice while we're recording, you know, because I have to do it in person to record it, so I might as well have people that are local join that. So that's that could be an experiment. Otherwise, it would just be an online meeting once a month as we go through this developmental process of getting to journeying with these tools. And an alternative to that, or also in addition to that, is an option of doing a physical day-long course for each season as we visit the kind of bring the skills into kind of a seasonal progression. So so it's an online option or physical in person once a season with connected work in between, you know, so you'd have a way to make that a continuous experience. And then the other option is to do both. So you're doing the once a month thing, and then once a season we get together and we explore this more deeply physically. So that is kind of the shape of it. And it's, you know, this is it's a difficult thing to convey in a way because of its nature, but I appreciate you guys really hanging in there and trying to grasp this. And hopefully it made some sense to you. And hopefully, whether you do this or not, or we see each other again, you will get some value from this evening either way. So nope, I guess they didn't join. Anyway, I think, guys, unless there's any questions, I'm going to wrap it up. Was that a hand raise, Kevin? Or just a hey? To all of you that I have not met, and especially from Colorado, I know it's later there than it is here. Thank you for your time and for taking a risk to see what's going on in a different corner of the universe. Feel free to follow up with me. I may send out one more email with kind of defining some stuff, but otherwise, it's great to spend some time with folks in this depth. So. I always like to ask before we close, does anyone need anything or have anything to say? I see it in the chat. Cool. Yes, wish we all lived closer. I don't know how that would work, but awesome. Well, thank you guys. Feel free to stay in touch, ask any questions. I love this stuff, so course or not, I will be working on it and sharing it. So right on. Well, I will sit here until everyone's gone, but thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Bye, Dita.
I didn't realize I was on mute earlier. I meant to unmute it, but I had just been waving to say thank you.
Okay.
So then I just kind of
I
typed
figured.
it, but I really like the idea of the meeting once a month seasonal. Once I heard you say that kind of sounded like a really good thing. So I'm grateful, and hopefully I can see if I can make it work. You know, I'd love to be able to attend everything.
I know.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah, I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
You want to? What? You're thinking about kicking it. You don't look like you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. If I record this and if I share this, if you have any questions, let me know. And yeah, stay tuned for what's next at Tribal Edge. Talk to you soon.